Hello, and welcome to Sleepy Dreams. Tonight we're traveling to a place where trees look like umbrellas turned inside out, where crimson sap flows like ancient secrets, and where one of the most extraordinary plants on Earth has been quietly defying time for millions of years. We're heading to a remote island in the Arabian Sea, to rocky plateaus kissed by ocean mists, to meet a botanical marvel that seems more fiction than fact. The dragon's blood tree, a living relic, a sculptural wonder, and a testament to the quiet resilience of life in the harshest of places. I hope this video isn't too interesting. Though, if it does happen to keep you awake, at least you'll be learning something fascinating in the process. Not the worst way to spend a sleepless night. Before we begin, if you enjoy drifting off to the gentle hum of nature's mysteries, I'd be very grateful if you tap the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps more sleepy minds find their way here. And while you're settling in, I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Feel free to share it in the comments. It's always wonderful to see how far these quiet little journeys reach. So get cozy, let your shoulders relax, let your thoughts slow down like mist rolling over ancient stone. And just a soft reminder before we begin, this video is for educational and relaxation purposes only. It's not intended as medical advice, a cure for insomnia, or a replacement for booking a flight to remote islands, though that last one is always encouraged. Let's begin. There are places on Earth that feel like they belong to another time. Places where the landscape seems borrowed from a dream or a painting, where the rules of ordinary life bend just slightly, allowing something extraordinary to take root. The island of Socotra, located off the coast of Yemen in the Arabian Sea, is one such place. Often called the Galapagos of the Indian Ocean, this isolated archipelago has been cut off from mainland Africa for some 20 million years. The result is a living museum of evolution, where over a third of the plant species exists nowhere else on Earth. And among this botanical wonderland, one tree stands out above all others, not just for its rarity or its age, but for its shape, its story, and the deep red resin that has earned it a name that echoes through mythology and medicine. The dragon's blood tree, known scientifically as Dracaena cinnabari. The first time you see a dragon's blood tree, it's hard to believe it's real. The shape is so unusual, so perfectly symmetrical, that it looks almost designed. Imagine an umbrella, but instead of fabric stretched over metal ribs, picture hundreds of thick, forking branches, all reaching upward and outward in tight clusters, crowned with tufts of spiky gray-green leaves. From a distance, the canopy resembles a mushroom, or perhaps a giant piece of broccoli perched atop a stout trunk. Up close, it's even more striking. The bark is smooth and pale, almost silver in certain light. The branches divide again and again in a pattern known as dichotomous branching, where each stem splits into two equal parts, creating a dense, interwoven network that seems to defy the usual logic of tree architecture. This is not a tree that shoots skyward like a pine or sprawls lazily like an oak. This is a tree that builds itself like a living lattice, carefully, methodically, symmetrically. The umbrella-shaped canopy is not just for show. It serves a very practical purpose. In the arid, windswept highlands of Socotra, water is scarce and the sun is relentless. The dense canopy creates a microclimate beneath it, trapping moisture from fog and mist, shading the soil and reducing evaporation. Rainwater that lands on the canopy is funneled down the branches and directed toward the base of the tree, ensuring that the roots receive as much water as possible. In this way, The dragon's blood tree is its own irrigation system, a self-contained oasis in a landscape where every drop of water counts. The leaves themselves are long, narrow, and sword-like, clustered at the tips of the branches in tight rosettes. They're tough and leathery, adapted to withstand intense sunlight and dry winds. Unlike deciduous trees that shed their leaves seasonally, the dragon's blood tree holds on to its foliage year-round, though older leaves do eventually drop and are replaced by new growth. This slow, steady turnover is characteristic of the tree's overall strategy. Nothing is rushed, everything is deliberate. Beneath the canopy, the trunk rises thick and sturdy, often swollen near the base. This trunk, though not particularly tall by tree standards, is dense and resilient. It has to be. The dragon's blood tree grows on rocky limestone plateaus where soil is thin and nutrients are scarce. Its roots spread wide rather than deep, gripping the stone like fingers, seeking out cracks and crevices where moisture and organic matter might collect. These roots are incredibly strong, anchoring the tree against the winds that sweep across the island with surprising force. But the trunk holds a secret. If you were to cut into the bark, or even just scratch it lightly, you would see something unexpected. A dark red sap begins to ooze out, thick and resinous, the color of blood. This is the dragon's blood, the substance that gives the tree its evocative name and has been prized by humans for thousands of years. The resin hardens when exposed to air, forming a brittle, crimson crust that can be collected and used in a variety of ways. Historically, it was traded as a dye, a varnish, a medicine, and even as incense. Ancient Greeks and Romans wrote about it. Medieval alchemists sought it. Traditional healers across the Middle East and Asia used it to treat wounds, stop bleeding, and protect against infection. The resin's red color comes from a group of compounds called flavonoids and dracorubins, which have antioxidant and antimicrobial properties. Modern research has confirmed what traditional knowledge long suggested, that dragon's blood resin can indeed promote healing, reduce inflammation, and inhibit the growth of certain bacteria and fungi. It's been used in toothpaste, cosmetics, and even as a protective coating for violins. But beyond its practical uses, the resin carries a symbolic weight. In many cultures, red is the color of life, of vitality, of power. To see a tree bleed red is to witness something primal, something that blurs the line between plant and animal, between the living and the mythical. It's no wonder that stories grew up around this tree, tales of dragons slain in battle, their blood seeping into the earth and giving rise to these strange, umbrella-shaped sentinels. The dragon's blood tree grows slowly, very slowly. It may take a decade or more for a seedling to reach just a few feet in height. The tree doesn't begin to branch until it's around 10 to 15 years old, and even then, the growth is incremental. A mature tree, one with a full, spreading canopy, may be several hundred years old. Some estimates suggest that the oldest dragon's blood trees on Socotra could be 500 years or more, though dating them precisely is difficult. They don't produce annual growth rings like temperate trees, so age must be estimated based on size, branching patterns, and historical records. This slow growth is both a survival strategy and a vulnerability. In a harsh environment, growing slowly allows the tree to conserve resources and avoid overextending itself during droughts or poor conditions. But it also means that once a tree is lost, it takes centuries to replace. And unfortunately, dragon's blood trees are declining. Their numbers have been shrinking for decades, and the reasons are complex and interconnected. Climate change is one of the biggest threats. Socotra's climate is shifting. Rainfall patterns are becoming less predictable. Droughts are more frequent and more severe. Cyclones, once rare, have become more common, and their powerful winds can topple or damage these slow-growing trees. The dragon's blood tree is adapted to a specific set of conditions, a delicate balance of moisture, temperature, and seasonal rhythms. When that balance shifts, the tree struggles to cope. Seedlings, in particular, are vulnerable. They need shade and moisture to establish themselves, and the shifting climate makes it harder for young trees to survive their critical early years. As a result, in many areas, you can find old, mature dragon's blood trees standing tall, but few or no young trees growing beneath them. It's a population aging without replacement, a slow fade rather than a sudden crash, but no less concerning for its gradual pace. Human activity also plays a role. Overgrazing by livestock, particularly goats, is a major problem. Goats are hardy animals, well suited to Socotra's tough environment, but they're also voracious eaters. They nibble on seedlings, strip bark, and trample the soil, making it even harder for young dragon's blood trees to take hold. In some areas, the ground beneath the trees is bare and compacted, devoid of the leaf litter and understory plants that would normally help retain moisture and enrich the soil. Development, too, is encroaching. Roads, buildings, and agriculture are expanding on Socotra, reducing the habitat available for these trees. And while there are efforts to protect the island's unique ecosystems, enforcement is inconsistent and resources are limited. Tourism, though still relatively small scale, is growing. Visitors come to see the dragon's blood trees, to photograph them, to walk among them. And while this can raise awareness and generate income for local communities, it also brings risks. Foot traffic can damage roots, litter can accumulate, and the very presence of humans can disturb the delicate ecological balance. But the dragon's blood tree is not without its allies. Conservation organizations, both local and international, are working to protect and restore populations of this iconic species. Efforts include planting seedlings in protected areas, reducing grazing pressure, and educating local communities about the importance of preserving their natural heritage. There's also research underway to better understand the tree's biology, its reproductive strategies, its response to environmental stress, and its role in the broader ecosystem. Scientists are studying the tree's resin, not just for its medicinal properties, but as a potential biomarker for climate change. The chemical composition of the resin can vary depending on environmental conditions, offering clues about how the tree is responding to shifts in temperature and rainfall. And there's hope that by understanding these responses, we can develop better strategies for protecting not just the dragon's blood tree, but other vulnerable species as well. The dragon's blood tree doesn't grow in isolation. It's part of a complex web of life on Socotra, interacting with other plants, animals, fungi, and microbes. Beneath the canopy, the shade and moisture create a refuge for smaller plants, insects, and birds. Some species of birds nest in the branches, using the dense foliage as protection from predators and the elements. The tree's flowers, which appear in clusters at the tips of the branches, are small and greenish-white, not particularly showy, but they produce berries that are eaten by birds and other animals. These berries are orange or red when ripe, and they contain seeds that, if conditions are right, may germinate and give rise to new trees. The relationship between the dragon's blood tree and its animal neighbors is a classic example of mutualism. The tree provides food and shelter, and in return, the animals help disperse its seeds, carrying them away from the parent tree and depositing them in new locations. This dispersal is crucial for the tree's survival. Without it, seeds would simply fall to the ground beneath the canopy, where they would compete with the parent tree for resources and likely fail to thrive. But seed dispersal is only part of the story. For a seed to become a tree, it must first germinate, and that requires the right conditions. The seed needs moisture, shade, and protection from herbivores. On Socotra, these conditions are increasingly rare. In many areas, the ground is too dry, too exposed, or too heavily grazed for seedlings to survive. This is why you often see landscapes dotted with old, mature dragon's blood trees, but very few young ones. It's a pattern that ecologists call recruitment failure, and it's a warning sign for the future of the species. Without a new generation of trees, the population will inevitably decline as the old trees die off. And because these trees grow so slowly, the window for intervention is narrow. If we wait too long to act, it may become impossible to reverse the decline. The dragon's blood tree is also a keystone species, meaning it plays a disproportionately large role in its ecosystem relative to its abundance. The shade it provides, the moisture it captures, the organic matter it contributes through leaf litter, all of these things help support other species. Remove the dragon's blood tree, and the entire ecosystem begins to unravel. The soil becomes drier and less fertile. The microclimate changes. Other plants struggle to survive. Animals lose their food sources and shelter. It's a cascading effect where the loss of one species leads to the loss of many others. This is why conservation efforts focused on the dragon's blood tree are so important. By protecting this one species, we're also protecting countless others that depend on it. The people of Socotra have lived alongside the dragon's blood tree for centuries, perhaps millennia. They've harvested its resin, used it in traditional medicine, and woven it into their cultural and spiritual practices. For the Socotri people, the dragon's blood tree is more than just a plant. It's a symbol of their island, a source of pride, and a link to their ancestors. The resin has been used to dye wool, to make pottery, and even as a cosmetic. It's been traded with passing ships, sold in markets, and passed down through generations as a treasured commodity. But the relationship between people and the dragon's blood tree is changing. As the island modernizes, traditional practices are being lost or forgotten. Younger generations are moving to towns, leaving behind the rural areas where the trees grow. And while this reduces direct human pressure on the trees in some ways, it also means there are fewer people with the knowledge and motivation to care for them. Conservation efforts must therefore balance protection with cultural respect, working with local communities rather than imposing solutions from the outside. This means listening to the Socotri people, learning from their traditional knowledge, and finding ways to support both the trees and the communities that have coexisted with them for so long. One of the most striking things about the dragon's blood tree is its appearance. It looks ancient, almost prehistoric, like something that might have existed alongside dinosaurs or megafauna. And in a sense, it is ancient. The genus Dracana, to which the dragon's blood tree belongs, is part of an old lineage of plants that has been around for tens of millions of years. Fossil evidence suggests that similar trees once grew in much wider areas, including parts of Africa, the Middle East, and even Europe. But as climates changed and continents shifted, the range of these trees contracted, and today, The dragon's blood tree is found only on Socotra and a few small areas of nearby islands. It's a relict species, a survivor from a bygone era, clinging to existence in one of the last places on Earth where it can still thrive. This makes it all the more precious and all the more urgent to protect. The dragon's blood tree has inspired artists, writers, and travelers for centuries. Its unusual shape and vivid red resin have made it a subject of fascination and wonder. Medieval manuscripts mention it. Renaissance explorers wrote about it. Modern photographers flock to Socotra to capture its otherworldly beauty. And it's easy to see why. There's something almost surreal about standing beneath a grove of dragon's blood trees, looking up at their interlocking canopies, feeling the cool shade on your skin, and knowing that these trees have been here, growing and enduring for longer than any human lifetime. They are living monuments, not to human achievement, but to the quiet persistence of nature. In recent years, the dragon's blood tree has become an icon of conservation, a symbol of the fragility of island ecosystems and the urgent need to protect them. It's been featured in documentaries, books, and scientific studies. It's been named one of the most endangered trees in the world. And while this attention is valuable, it also comes with a risk. The dragon's blood tree is not just a symbol, it's a living organism with complex needs and a delicate ecological role. It can't be saved by awareness alone. It requires action, resources, commitment, and time. It requires protecting its habitat, reducing threats, supporting local communities, and conducting research to better understand how to help it thrive in a changing world. There's something deeply humbling about the dragon's blood tree. It reminds us that we are not the only inhabitants of this planet, and that our actions have consequences that ripple outward in ways we often don't see or understand. It reminds us that beauty can be found in the most unlikely places, and that resilience is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, slow, and rooted in patience. The dragon's blood tree doesn't rush. It doesn't complain. It simply grows, one careful branching at a time, reaching toward the sky, capturing moisture, sheltering life, and bleeding red when wounded. It's a testament to the power of adaptation, the importance of place, and the enduring strength of life itself. If you were to visit Socotra today, you might find yourself standing on a rocky plateau, the wind tugging at your clothes, the sun warm on your face, surrounded by a landscape that looks like nothing you've ever seen before. The dragon's blood trees rise around you, their canopies forming a patchwork of shade and light. The air smells of stone and salt and the faint, resinous sweetness of sap. Birds call from the branches, lizards dart across the ground, and you realize that you're standing in a place that has existed, largely unchanged, for millions of years. A place where evolution took a detour, where isolation created wonders, and where one tree, more than any other, has come to symbolize the delicate balance between survival and extinction. The dragon's blood tree doesn't just grow on Socotra. In a way, it is Socotra. It defines the island's landscape, its ecology, its culture, and its identity. And if we lose it, we lose more than just a species. We lose a piece of Earth's natural heritage, a link to the past, and a lesson for the future. But it's not too late. With care, attention, and respect, the dragon's blood tree can continue to grace Socotra's plateaus for centuries to come. It can continue to inspire, to shelter, to bleed red, and to stand as a reminder that even in the harshest of places, life finds a way. The story of the dragon's blood tree is also a story about time. Not human time, measured in hours and days, but geological time, evolutionary time, the deep, slow rhythm of the earth itself. This tree has witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. It has weathered storms that no human recorded. It has grown through droughts and floods, through wars and peace, through silence and song, and it has done so with a grace that can only come from living in harmony with one's environment, from being perfectly, exquisitely adapted to a specific place and time. The dragon's blood tree is not trying to conquer the world. It's not spreading aggressively or outcompeting other species. It's simply being what it is, where it is, and that is enough. In a world that often feels rushed and chaotic, where change happens faster than we can process it, the dragon's blood tree offers a different perspective. It reminds us that some things are worth taking time for, that growth doesn't have to be fast to be meaningful, that strength can be quiet and endurance can be beautiful. It teaches us to look more carefully, to appreciate the small details, the way the branches divide, the texture of the bark, the shimmer of light through the leaves. It invites us to slow down, to breathe, to simply be present in a moment that stretches back millions of years and forward into an uncertain future. There's a certain poetry in the fact that a tree called dragon's blood doesn't breathe fire or hoard treasure, but instead offers shade, moisture, and healing. It's a different kind of power, one that doesn't dominate but supports, that doesn't take but gives. And perhaps that's the real magic of the dragon's blood tree. Not the red sap, or the strange shape, or the ancient lineage, but the way it embodies a kind of quiet generosity, a willingness to nurture life, even in the most inhospitable of places. It doesn't ask for much, just a rocky hillside, some fog, a little rain, and time. Lots and lots of time. As the sun sets over Socotra, the dragon's blood trees are bathed in golden light, their canopies glowing like lanterns against the darkening sky. The shadows lengthen, the air cools, and the trees stand as they have always stood, patient and still, waiting for the night, waiting for the morning, waiting for the fog to roll in from the sea. They've been here before. They'll be here again. And if we're wise, if we're careful, if we act with the same patience and deliberation that the trees themselves embody, they'll continue to be here for generations to come. Not as relics of a lost world, but as living, breathing participants in the ongoing story of life on Earth. The dragon's blood tree is many things. It's a botanical curiosity, a conservation priority, a cultural treasure, and a work of natural art. But more than anything, it's a survivor. It has outlasted empires and epochs. It has adapted to isolation and adversity. It has found a way to thrive where others would wither. And in doing so, it has become a symbol of resilience, not just for its species, but for all of us. Because if a tree can survive for millions of years on a windswept island, growing slowly, bleeding red, and sheltering life beneath its umbrella canopy, then perhaps there's hope for the rest of us too. Perhaps we can learn to slow down, to adapt, to endure. Perhaps we can learn to be a little more like the dragon's blood tree, rooted, resilient, and quietly, powerfully alive. The dragon's blood tree also holds lessons about rarity and value. We often don't appreciate things until they're threatened, until they're on the edge of disappearing. The dragon's blood tree has been growing on Socotra for countless generations, a constant presence in the landscape, something locals might have taken for granted. But now, as its numbers dwindle and its future becomes uncertain, people are paying attention. Scientists are studying it. Conservationists are protecting it. Tourists are traveling thousands of miles to see it. And the Sokatri people are recognizing its importance, not just as a resource, but as a living symbol of their island's uniqueness. This pattern repeats itself across the natural world. We realize too late that what we thought would always be there might not be. And then we scramble to save it, to preserve it, to hold on to it just a little longer. But the dragon's blood tree teaches us that prevention is better than cure, that protecting what we have before it's threatened is wiser than waiting until it's almost gone. It's worth considering what the world would lose if the dragon's blood tree were to disappear. Obviously, we would lose a species, a unique genetic lineage that has evolved over millions of years. We would lose a source of resin with medicinal and cultural significance. We would lose a keystone species that supports countless other organisms. But we would also lose something less tangible, something harder to measure. We would lose a sense of wonder, a connection to a world that existed long before humans, a reminder that there are still places on Earth that feel wild and magical and strange. The dragon's blood tree is a living link to the past, a bridge between the ancient world and the modern one. And if that bridge collapses, we'll be a little more isolated, a little less connected to the deep history of life on this planet. But there's also reason for hope. The dragon's blood tree has survived for millions of years through climate shifts and geological upheavals, through extinctions and evolutions. It has proven itself to be remarkably resilient, and while the current threats are serious, they're not insurmountable. With coordinated conservation efforts, sustainable land management, and community involvement, it's possible to stabilize and even increase populations of dragon's blood trees. Seedlings can be protected, grazing can be managed, habitat can be restored, and the trees, slow as they are, can continue their patient march through time. It won't be easy, and it won't be quick, but then again, the dragon's blood tree has never been about easy or quick. It's about endurance, and if we can match even a fraction of that endurance in our conservation efforts, then there's every reason to believe that these extraordinary trees will continue to grace Socotra's plateaus for centuries to come. The dragon's blood tree also invites us to think about what it means to be adapted to a place. This tree is so perfectly suited to Socotra's environment that it could not survive anywhere else, at least not in the wild. It needs the specific combination of fog, seasonal rains, rocky soil, and isolation that the island provides. In botanical gardens around the world, dragon's blood trees have been grown as curiosities, but they never quite look the same. They don't develop the same perfect umbrella shape. They don't thrive in the same way. They're like fish out of water, alive, but not truly living. This speaks to a deeper truth about the natural world. Every species is a product of its environment, shaped by the specific conditions of the place it calls home. And when we remove a species from that place, or when we alter that place beyond recognition, we risk losing not just the species itself, but the relationships, the adaptations, and the ecological processes that make it unique. The dragon's blood tree is not just a tree. It's a Socotran tree, inseparable from the island that made it. In many ways, the dragon's blood tree is a mirror. When we look at it, we see reflections of our own values, our own priorities, our own relationships with the natural world. Some people see it as a resource, valuable for its resin and its economic potential. Others see it as a symbol, an icon of conservation and environmental awareness. Still others see it as a living being, deserving of protection for its own sake, regardless of its usefulness to humans. All of these perspectives have truth in them. The dragon's blood tree is all of these things and more. But perhaps the most important thing it offers us is a challenge. It challenges us to think beyond ourselves, beyond our immediate needs and desires, and to consider the long view. What kind of world do we want to leave behind? What do we owe to future generations, not just of humans, but of all living things? The dragon's blood tree won't answer these questions for us. It can only stand there, silent and patient, waiting to see what we choose. There's a certain melancholy in the story of the dragon's blood tree, a sense of something precious slipping away. But there's also beauty in that melancholy, a poignancy that makes the tree even more remarkable. We're living in a moment when we can still see these trees, still walk among them, still marvel at their strange and ancient forms. And while the future is uncertain, the present is a gift. Every dragon's blood tree standing today is a victory, a testament to the forces of life that push back against entropy and extinction. Every seedling that takes root is a small act of defiance, a refusal to give up, and every person who works to protect these trees, whether as a scientist, a conservationist, a local farmer, or simply as someone who cares, is participating in a story much larger than themselves. They're helping to write the next chapter in a saga that began millions of years ago and could, if we're lucky, continue for millions more. The dragon's blood tree is also a reminder that the natural world is full of surprises. Even in the 21st century, with all our technology and knowledge, there are still places that feel untouched, still species that feel miraculous. Socotra is one of those places, and the dragon's blood tree is one of those species. It reminds us that Earth is not a finished project, not a museum or a theme park, but a living, evolving system full of wonders we're still discovering. And it reminds us that we have a choice. We can be passive observers, watching as these wonders fade away, or we can be active participants, working to preserve and protect them. The dragon's blood tree doesn't need us to exist, but it does need us not to destroy it. And in a world increasingly shaped by human activity, that's a tall order. But it's also an opportunity, a chance to show that we're capable of more than just consumption and exploitation, that we can be stewards, partners, and allies in the ongoing story of life on Earth. As we come to the end of this journey, it's worth pausing to reflect on what the dragon's blood tree has to teach us. It teaches us about adaptation, about how life finds ways to survive in the most unlikely places. It teaches us about patience, about how growth and change happen on timescales that dwarf our individual lives. It teaches us about interconnection, about how every species is part of a larger web, dependent on and supporting countless others. And it teaches us about value, about how some things are worth protecting not because they're useful, but because they're irreplaceable. The dragon's blood tree is not just a tree. It's a story, a symbol, a challenge, and a hope. It's a reminder that even in a world of rapid change and mounting threats, there are still things worth fighting for. And sometimes those things have roots and bark and branches, and they bleed red when wounded. So, wherever you are right now, whether you're lying in bed or sitting in a chair or walking through a quiet night, take a moment to think about the dragon's blood tree. Picture it standing on a rocky plateau, its umbrella canopy spread wide, its roots gripping the stone, its branches reaching toward the sky. Picture the fog rolling in from the sea, the moisture gathering on the leaves, the droplets running down to the roots. Picture the birds nesting in the branches, the lizards basking in the shade, the seeds waiting in the soil for the right moment to germinate. Picture all of this happening slowly, quietly, patiently, just as it has for millions of years. And then ask yourself, what can I do to help? How can I be a part of this story? How can I contribute, even in a small way, to the preservation of this extraordinary tree and the countless other species that share our planet? The answers will be different for everyone, but the questions are worth asking. Because the dragon's blood tree, for all its strangeness and beauty, is asking us something very simple. Will you let me live? Will you give me a chance? Will you slow down long enough to see me, to understand me, to care? The dragon's blood tree has been standing for a very long time. It has weathered storms and droughts, winds and fires, isolation and change. It has seen the world transform around it, and it has adapted, slowly but surely, to every challenge. And now it faces perhaps its greatest challenge yet, coexisting with a species that has the power to destroy it or to save it. That species is us, and the choice, as always, is ours to make. But if we choose wisely, if we act with care and intention, if we honor the dragon's blood tree for what it is and what it represents, then perhaps, just perhaps, it will continue to stand for centuries more, bleeding red when wounded, sheltering life beneath its canopy, and reminding us all that even in the harshest of places, beauty and resilience can take root and thrive. And so, after drifting through mist-covered plateaus and ancient resin, symmetrical canopies and crimson secrets, we find ourselves back where we began, marveling at one of Earth's most extraordinary trees. The dragon's blood tree is not just a survivor. It's a storyteller, a symbol, and a silent guardian of an island that time almost forgot. It doesn't shout or demand attention. It simply stands, as it has for millions of years, offering shade and shelter, bleeding red and growing slow, a testament to the quiet power of patience and adaptation. We've uncovered how it shapes its environment, how it captures moisture from fog, how it bleeds a resin that has been treasured for millennia. We've seen its struggles and its strengths, its place in the web of life, and its uncertain future. And now, perhaps, you see it not just as a tree, but as a living monument to resilience, a bridge between the ancient past and the fragile present. So, with all of this in mind, are you still awake? If you are, I hope it's not because I was too interesting. Though, if I was, well, at least you've learned a few things about a tree that bleeds like a dragon and stands like an umbrella on the edge of the world. And if you're already halfway to dreamland, may your thoughts be filled with fog-kissed plateaus and canopies that shelter life in the most unlikely of places. Before you drift off completely, I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is in your part of the world. Drop a comment and share. Have you ever seen a dragon's blood tree? Do you have a favorite unusual plant? And if you found this gentle journey into the world of this extraordinary tree relaxing or informative, or both, please do consider giving this video a like and subscribing to Sleepy Dreams. It's a small gesture that helps me keep bringing you more calming, curious content from the natural world and beyond. Thank you for joining me on this journey to meet the dragon's blood tree. Sleep well, dream deep, and don't forget the world is full of wonders, quietly, patiently, beautifully. You just have to slow down to see them.